Suffolk Pod Show is produced and managed by podtalkuk. I'm Mark Mason.
And I'm Susanna Hornby. This is a conversation I've been dying to have for a really long time because, Cathy, I've known you for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, must be.
And we're really busy and we've never actually managed to sit down and have a cup of coffee, is what we're doing now, and have a chat.
I don't think we ever have.
No. Well, now's our opportunity.
Yeah.
Welcome Cathy Frost, who does many things. I'm not going to list them now. I think we're just going to take everybody who's listening on that journey. But before we go into all of these things that you do, can we go back to the young Cathy Frost? I saw a photo.
Oh, Mother's Day.
On Mother's Day.
In my school uniform.
Yeah.
That was so cute. I had really short hair.
It's cute.
It is very cute, yeah.
You haven't changed much.
Oh, I love it when people say that. Because you kind of think you do, but actually when you look back at friends' photos as well, if you've known anything, actually we don't really, do we? Not really.
Not really.
Not really. Hair, maybe. And
yeah. But the character is still there. And that even comes across in a photo, you can see.
Oh, that's really sweet. Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
So where was that photo taken? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in southeast London. So I was born in Woolwich and my family are from Bermondsey, Deptford, Woolwich, Plumstead, so that part of London. So that photograph was taken on Shooters Hill. We lived in a council flat on Shooters Hill, and I went to school, primary school in South London, and we left South London when I was probably about 10 or 11. My dad was a foreman in the docks, the Royal Albert and Victoria Docks, which shut, and is now obviously Docklands, and he was transferred to Tilbury, which, if you know your geography, is on the other side of the river. So he every day would have to drive and go under the tunnel. We didn't have a bridge then, and it was quite expensive. So, and my parents had never owned a house. They'd always lived in council flat. When I was 10, they bought their first house in Essex. So I spent my teenage years in Essex. So I'm an Essex girl, but
well, you are.
I am, and I'm quite proud of that. Yeah.
So the house was bought near Tilbury Docks.
It was actually they actually bought the house in Romford.
Mm-hmm.
Posh bit was Gidea Park, and we were on the cusp of Gidea Park.
So you went to school in Romford?
Yes. So I went to Francis Bardsley School for Girls, which was, as the name suggests, it was just girls only, but it had been the grammar school, and they combined the grammar and the comprehensive together, and it became Francis Bardsley School for Girls. So a lot of my teachers were actually the old grammar school teachers who were quite severe.
Did you like school?
I loved school. Yeah, I loved school. I was very lucky that I loved sport, and I always played a lot of sport at school. So I was always one of those kids that I was never the nerdy kid, and I was never the kid that got into trouble, but I was always on the cusp of it all, always, because I think sport, you were always, if you're in a team, it was always a bit cool to be in the netball team or the athletics team or whatever. I love school. I had great friends. I mean, it wasn't always, school, isn't it? But I did. I love school, and I love learning. I just, loved, I do. Yeah, I had a great, I don't have really bad memories. What was sad was when I left my school in what would be now year 5, the end of year 5, that's when we moved. So I had 2 weeks in a new school, and then we had the summer holidays, and then I went into year 6. And that was a bit daunting.
Yeah, it was tough.
Really tough, because your friendships you make at primary school, very often you then go up to high school. But I had to make new friends quite quickly. But actually, the friends I made in that those last 2 weeks of that term, I still keep in contact with a couple of them. And one of them has been a lifelong friend.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I guess because you love sport and you were good at it too, you're instantly into a friend group straight away.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've always, although I work a lot on my own, when you have your own business, it's quite a singular pursuit. I do love being in teams, which is why I've kind of been drawn to lots of other aspects of my life where I've always been in a team. For that reason, I guess. Oh, I'm an only child. So I think that's been quite significant, actually, because you have to make your own way. You know, when I didn't have siblings to bounce ideas off or try new things.
Give you perspective, even. Yeah.
So I was the only child, and for about 10 years, I was the only child in the family until my cousins arrived when I was 10. So I had a lot of adults around me.
So you must have been a fairly mature child, which is why you took to learning and why you enjoyed it. Am I assuming that?
Yeah, I think so. My parents were both not that academic, really, and they both had trades. And I suppose my maternal grandfather was an engineer in the Woolwich Arsenal.
Wow.
And he wasn't learned, but I always remember him doing the crossword. It was always the cryptic one, which I have never mastered. But he was the one that really sat and read and, really, I suppose that. And my uncle was very good at art, even though he was a carpenter. He was a carpenter, but he loved art and drawing. So I suppose that kind of love of learning, reading, art came from those people in my life, I suppose. And I had a lot of time with them because obviously being an only child, I did have a lot of time spent with them on a one-to-one.
Yeah. Invaluable, actually.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. You finished at school. Did you go to university?
I did, yes. So I didn't do very well with my A-levels. I got a great set of O-levels. Really impressive O-levels and high hopes for A-levels.
Yeah.
And I applied to do marine biology.
What?
I am the kid that loves art but wasn't good at art at school. And in the 70s, art wasn't geared up for people who just, if you couldn't draw, you didn't do art. And I couldn't draw. Still can't draw, really. So even though I loved the arts in its myriad form, I was better at sport and I was better at science and maths. So I ended up going through that route. So I did 3 science A-levels. I did really well in biology and I didn't do so well in chemistry and I completely bombed in physics. And so my place at Southampton Uni went and I went through clearing and I ended up at Hatfield Poly, which is now University of Hertfordshire. And I studied applied biology, which was basically industrial biology, which... it wasn't kind of where I wanted to be, but I was really, really desperate to go to uni. I mean, I love being at home. It wasn't like I ran away from home, but I just wanted the next bit of my life to start. And my friends, there was quite a few of us who were going to uni. In fact, all my friends went to uni, and I didn't want to be the only one. So I was devastated. It's the first thing I probably failed in my life, and that's hard. That's quite a pivotal moment in my life, failing my A-levels, or 2 of them. But I went to Hatfield Poly and I had the best 4 years and I met great people. I still see some of those people now. And it took me into a different aspects of my life, which is I have a very strong social conscience. And I think I ended up, when I left uni, I didn't want to work in a lab. I did a year out. I did a thick sandwich, which I don't know whether they do them now, but you did 2 years and then you went out for a year. I did that in a research lab for a food company and it was great, but it wasn't me. It wasn't where I wanted to be. So I started kind of thinking about what I'm going to do when I leave uni. And a friend of mine, her brother had done zoology and had ended up becoming a health inspector, so an environmental health officer. And I thought that sounded quite interesting because it was kind of in a team, it was local government, but it was working with people, it was science-based. And that's what I did. I ended up doing that in East London. So I trained with the London Borough of Redbridge. And that's kind of where this other aspect, this social conscience kicked in of kind of realising I was never destined for the corporate world. It didn't interest me. I had friends who were going off being accountants and
that just wasn't...
It wasn't what I wanted to do. I kind of had this feeling of kind of like being at the grassroots of stuff and getting stuck in, and that's...
Which is what you still do now.
Yeah, I haven't shaken it. I can't shake it. Probably will
don't.
Never shake it. No, it's me now. It's me now. Yeah, so that's kind of... so uni was interesting because even though it was academic, it did throw me into a slightly different path than I ever thought. I mean, 1 minute I was going to, dive with dolphins on the Barrier Reef, and the next I'm looking at rats in Redbridge. So, you know, a little bit of a different path, but nonetheless, that's where I ended up.
And I think also for quite a few people who are listening, because it's certainly I went through this in our generation, it's actually really impressive as a woman to go to university in the early 80s or late 70s or early 80s, whenever you went.
Yeah.
Because most of us were destined to be, as far as I remember my career as officer, saying, well, no, you will be a great secretary.
Yeah, they did offer shorthand and typing at my school. And if you didn't do O-levels, if you were doing, what was it, CSEs?
Yes, CSEs, yeah.
You also did shorthand and typing. If you did O-levels, you didn't do shorthand and typing.
No.
And I really wish I had done, because I think it would have been a really good skill, because I can't really type. I'm a bit, one finger kind of typing. No, you're right. I think, because I was saying about the teachers that were grammar school teachers, they were quite old-fashioned, and I think they felt there was certainly, although they were quite strict and quite severe, there were at least 2 or 3 of them who, and I remember them saying, our girls go to university. If you're able, that's where we're going to get you. Don't think they were bothered about where or what you studied, but they wanted you to go. So I think that was, again, quite a moment, and I was the first, probably the only person in my family that went to uni. And they were really working. My family were, my dad was a docker, my mum was a tailoress, my grandparents all worked, in industry. They weren't high flyers by any means. So I think there was a push as well to get me to go. And whilst I don't share her politics, I was definitely a product of Thatcher's drive to get women into engineering and science. A product of that, for sure.
Talking of politics, when did politics start to play in your mind? And I mean, you were talking about your social conscience and all the rest of it. When have you, you were a Labour Party member?
Well, politics has always been around my life, because my grandfathers were union men. So my grandfather was in the Woolwich Arsenal, so he was an engineer. And my paternal grandfather he worked in the docks. So the whole trade union thing has been really big in my life. And I wasn't an active, I always voted Labour, maybe because of that family connection. But I think that feeling of, going to uni and seeing what opportunities that should be there for everybody, I think, and I was a product of that for sure. Really, it's always been there. It's always kind of been there, but didn't really galvanise really until COVID.
Right.
Because we had a bit of time. By that time, I'd been quite involved with stuff in Ipswich, so Ipswich Vision, the regeneration of Ipswich. Ipswich, we've been talking about Ipswich being at a turning point for many years, but I think having a bit of time at home and being able to think about things a bit more and following the politics of the moment, like a lot of people, I think I was really angry at what I was hearing, what I was seeing. And at that point, I thought, you know what, I've been really involved with Ipswich life in many aspects, but I'd never been involved with the politics of it. And so I joined the Labour Party, I think during COVID. That's when it really took over. Yeah, so COVID probably when it really, because I had a bit of time.
Yeah.
I read a lot more than I'd ever done. I was online. I was able to, and the only thing we could do was lap up the news.
Exactly.
And I became more aware of it and more critical of the system.
And I love that you say, I just did something about it, because so many of us sit there, armchair politicians. So when would I've been? So I've been a councillor now 2 years, Labour councillor for 2 years. So 2022. This is my third. So 2022 would it have been? Just trying to think. Yeah, it is because I looked it up.
I do. Thank you for checking.
I just want to know how you got from becoming a health inspector to an interior designer. How does that work?
Well, so if you think about it, actually. Biology was my thing, and biology is the study of design. It's how things work, how the body works, etc., how our natural processes work. So actually, the leap from biology to art isn't that massive, actually. And because my mother had set up a business, so she'd gone from being a tailoress So making men's suits to making curtains and soft furnishings when I was small. And so I was surrounded by kind of interiors magazines and that world from quite a young age. They loved the theatre, my parents, and music. So I was kind of, although they weren't traditionally creatives in the word how we use creatives now, there was a lot of creative stuff going on at home actually. And I think I've always had a love of history and art, and because we lived in South London when I was little, and then latterly in Essex, my dad had done a lot of shift work, so they were always very keen at the weekends to take me places. So we always went to stately homes and art galleries and all the museums in London. So it was always kind of there, you know. It was just that I happened to not be very good at drawing, which meant I couldn't do art at school. I wanted to do history A level and they wouldn't let me because of the timetabling, and so that's why I ended up doing 3 sciences. And so it wasn't such a massive leap really, and the interiors came about because I'd been surrounded by it, and it was more of a hobby, an interest, and then several things kind of happened to push me into a different life really. So when I was 30, I was working in Ipswich Borough as a health inspector. I transferred from London down here because I'd met Andy, my husband, at uni, and and he was from Ipswich. He worked at BT, and we ended up living here. When I was 30, I had my daughter, Hannah, and within a year, my mother died from breast cancer. And then the year after, I had my son. So in a 3-year period, quite a lot of massive life things had happened. And obviously we were left with Mum's workroom and all her stuff that she had for her business. And we had just bought an old house to do up, and it was half done, and she'd made a lot of the furnishing. So I kind of found myself in a position of, what do I do now? Because I haven't got anyone to make curtains. So I started making them myself. We brought all the stuff home. We had converted my dining room into a workroom. And I decided at that point not to go back to local government. Andy was working abroad quite a lot with BT, and I just thought actually emotionally I was not in a great place. You know, I needed to be home, kids, just regroup. And that's kind of what I did really. So, yeah, so I kind of started making furnishings. And then, as these things do, people said, oh, they're nice. Can you make me a pair of curtains? And then before I knew it, I had people ringing me up going, oh, I've heard you make curtains. So this kind of business grew quite organically without me really trying. And I was like, oh, well, actually, and Andy said, well, look, if you don't want to go back to local government, why? So I did. So I had a friend who had similar age children. She wanted to do creative writing. And so we decided one day a week I would have her children and she would have mine. She went and did creative writing, and I took myself up to Otley College and did an interior design course for 2 years, one day a week for 2 years. And I didn't really look back. So I started my own business, basically, out of something very sad, something really quite positive. And actually, it was probably one of the best things I've ever done, because it took me on a completely different and thrilling path.
Yeah. And creative, which is
creative,
in your
yes.
bones from
yes.
day one of your existence.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And which is why, when people talk about careers, when people give you careers advice, I don't know what careers advice you were given. Oh, well, you said about being
not much, and it was very disappointing.
How we can get it wrong, and nowadays I hope that we are better at giving that kind of advice, really. So that's kind of how it started, and through that I then set myself up as a business, and I took a curtain maker on as well, and then I got some work through a kitchen company who wanted me to do some work for them. Long story, I ended up being a kitchen designer for about 4 or 5 years, and through that experience I had to buy product for the showroom. So I went out and started buying nice things, and I like shopping, and one thing led to another, and I was like, maybe I could turn this into a retail business. And so in 2007, I took the plunge to open here in Ipswich, 21 St Peter Street. So I took the business, the interiors business, onto the high street.
And you gave it the name Love One then?
Yeah, my other passion is tennis. I love tennis. I don't play it, but I love watching tennis. And I was thinking about a name, and I was driving somewhere, and I saw a van, and there was something around Wimbledon, and it had love. I don't know, love, and then it just kind of went. I went, oh, Love One, and we all say it. I'd love one of those. Love one of those. Oh, I'd love one of those. And I thought, you know what? That's great. We'll do that.
Yeah, because Mark and I were talking about this, and I said, now what is in that name?
Yes.
Okay, so obviously there's I'd love one, but then obviously not knowing about the tennis connection, we would never have come up with that, although we might have eventually.
Yeah, no.
But we thought that actually what a really cool name to love one. Love oneself almost. I don't know where that came from.
I think there is. Nice. Yeah, it is. Yeah, and it's stuck.
It's lovely. And it is, and it's been here for 18 years.
18 years this November.
It's a beautiful shop. I swear I just could spend hours looking through all the gorgeous design stuff that you've got. I mean, I'm not going to, from everything from candles, those cards, always struggle for original, beautiful cards. And you have got hundreds of them.
Literally hundreds, probably thousands.
Yeah. And you've got, I don't know, there's just everything. There's little gifts and things for people, but there are things that I would just look beautiful in people's houses every day. And a lot of them are very usable things too. Just fabulous, gorgeous.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm so pleased that you have said that, because when you're in it all day, every day, you don't often see, you see it on a bit different level. But I will say that this journey with the business started with the love of lovely things, and I watched my mother make some amazing pieces of soft furnishings. Nowadays you wouldn't want, I don't know, maybe people still have swags and tails, but some of this stuff was beautiful. And then when I then started making it myself, the actual pleasure of making something. So although I'm not a true creative in the creative sense, I guess, the making something, putting it up, and someone saying, transforming was so amazing. And I don't know how many people ever experience that in their lives, but that was really quite a wonderful thing. So this love of nice things, it doesn't have to be expensive things either. Just if things are well thought out. And I love, I love Scandinavia, I love Scandi design, but I can't live my life like that. So I've always said, the shop has got to be joyous and fun and colourful and a bit of theatre, because actually, let's be honest, life is quite grim at the moment. And so if you can come in and just spend a couple of pounds on something, and we have got products here that are £2 or £3, up to £90, £100. So there's something for everybody. The cards are delightful. I deal with lots of wonderful small designers, always trying to find the quirky, the unusual, good quality, but affordable, beautiful stuff. And
I will say, I've literally walked around your shop. I didn't realise there's all that out the back as well.
It's a bit of a TARDIS.
So when you see the front of the shop, you think that size, but actually it's about 3 times that size. It's just, on the price, it was brilliant. I was thinking, oh my gosh, that silk scarf is amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, it's £25. That's okay. I'm thinking, and I think your things are beautiful, but also affordable, and that's really important.
Well, I think as well, you've got to know your market, and Ipswich is. We could have a whole podcast about Ipswich, I'm sure. But Ipswich is an interesting place. It is my adopted home. I love it. I'm fiercely protective of Ipswich. Isn't perfect, but it's my home, and I love it. And there's some amazing people here, but we've got to accept that the demographic in Ipswich is very different. We are getting a lot more visitors, and we're getting a lot of people moving from London, for sure. And especially with working from home culture we have now, more and more people are leaving cities, not just London, but Midlands as well, coming to live here. So it's about affordability, but having a bit of fun with it as well, because not everything, just because something's expensive doesn't necessarily mean it's good or well designed. So it's about finding those quirkier, interesting things that make you smile, clothes that you want to wear, bright colours. Just have a bit of fun with it. And we've got a lot of really good people here in the shop. designers, artisans.
Cromwell Square, where you can park,
Yes.
is really reasonable, and it is literally a minute's walk to your shop.
Well, I'm so glad you said it's reasonable price. Parking is always a bit of an issue in Ipswich, or we are led to believe it is. Yeah, I mean, look, Ipswich is a large town, and we hope we will soon be a city. So we are rapidly expanding and growing, and there's lots of really exciting projects happening. And I, again, putting my political hat on here, I've never been a big advocate for free parking, because actually free parking is not always, it can clog up a town with people who are just leave their car there all day and don't do anything. So I think parking has got to be fairly priced. You can have free days, or free after 2 or that kind of things, but to have there are businesses, car parks are businesses like everyone else. So but it's great having a car park up the road. We have a little bit of free parking outside the shop, which is very useful, and I do think that has helped this street become, or be able to maintain its vibrancy, because even on those rainy, wet, horrible days, cold days, people can literally pull up and nip in, and that does help. The parking here and obviously on the waterfront does help.
Now, all the things that you do, we've talked about this brilliant shop that we're sitting in at the moment. We've talked about you being a Labour councillor. We haven't talked about you actually being a councillor and what that involves. Is there a lot to do for that role?
Yes, yes and no. I've 2 years in now. You do 4 years. It was. I'd been around. I'd worked in local government, so I understood the system. I wasn't going into this kind of blindly. I knew a bit about how councils worked, and I also, because of the fact we arrange street markets here, I had come into contact with a lot of our local councillors as well as officers. So I kind of was going in knowing. I had a friend who still is a councillor as well. So I'd been around it. I wasn't going in eyes closed. I knew what I was kind of letting myself in for. But what I hadn't bargained on was the juggling that I have to do. And in fact, I'm doing an interview in the week with the Local Government Association about trying to get more women involved, get more diversity involved in councillor life, because we need to run an effective council, and you do need people from all walks of life. And I do feel if more people who were in business could get involved, because we do bring something different. And what you don't want is, and whilst, everyone at their life journey, stage in their life brings something, I can see why traditionally we've had lots of maybe older people, retired people who become councillors because they have time. Yeah. And I am very time poor. But I think I do bring something a bit different, and we need more of it, really. So it's a lot of juggling, and some weeks I really don't know how I fit it all in, because you have a lot of evening meetings, and some of those go on for 2 or 3 hours. Yeah. And this isn't this is really serious stuff. We're in a really difficult, local government is in a really difficult position at the moment financially, but we are being asked to provide more and more services at a time when we're having to close things, and that's not why I went into this.
I can imagine.
That's hard. I find that emotionally really hard to deal with. And but on the other hand, I've met some great people, and I do feel sometimes it is a really good thing to do. Whether I do it for however long, I really don't know. Yeah. We're faced now with local government reorganisation in 2 years.
Yes, I was going to ask you about that.
That's taking up a lot of time now, with certainly with the leaders of the various councils, and that's going to be a very different way of doing things. And all of the councillors, certainly that I talk to, are going to have to think hard about whether they continue. It's going to be a different structure.
Do we know yet?
No, we don't.
Got any clue about how that structure is going to work?
So it's all gone, as far as I'm aware, the proposals were sent to government a few weeks ago, and there are 2 proposals on the table for Suffolk. One is led by the district councils, of which Ipswich is one, proposing a 3 unitary model, so East, West and Greater Ipswich, which is where we feel we would be more effective, certainly economically. We're more aligned to Felixstowe than we are to Newmarket, for example, or to Lowestoft. The county want just Suffolk as a unitary, And again, personally, I don't think that would work. It's too big, too weight. It's too. We're too diverse. Suffolk's too diverse. I think it makes more sense to have the 3 smaller unitaries. But that's what's the government. I think there'll be more work on the business case going on between now and September, and then at some point the minister will declare whatever the. But we will also be devolved. There are 2 bits. There's the local government review and then the devolution, which is about the mayor. We will have a mayor for Suffolk and Norfolk, so the mayor of the East. And again, that will be for the bigger infrastructure pieces, police. But, maybe that will give Suffolk a voice that we haven't had, maybe. I don't know.
You mean lobbying up to central government?
Yeah. Because the East, it's not all pretty villages and the coast. It's the airport is on the edge of. We've got Norwich Airport, but you've got port, you've got logistics, offshore wind, it's huge. Got nuclear, it's tourism. It's a very diverse, vibrant area with its own issues, and to have Suffolk at the table will be important.
Yeah.
Crucial.
Very.
I would say, especially for the development of Ipswich.
Yeah. And when you think about, well, I know this is, when we think sensitively about this, about the very different demographic of each town, village. I am no politician, but I have no idea how one company can look after and speak for all those different diverse areas. You're
absolutely right. I mean, the way I see it is that if you look at Suffolk, if you look at West Suffolk, so you've got Newmarket, they are more aligned, Cambridge Tech Corridor. So they're more aligned to that kind of economic area. The East is very much about coastal tourism and probably offshore wind and energy and nuclear. And then, Ipswich is the kind of the heart of Suffolk, but economically aligned to Felixstowe, the ports and logistics, and its links to London. And so how, I can't see being able to deliver services to such a diverse, Ipswich and Felixstowe are, well, Ipswich is a larger town than Felixstowe, but, the issues that we are experiencing are very different to the middle of rural Suffolk. So it makes more sense for us to be able to deliver services that are tailored to our communities, really tailored to it. And we are very different to, say, Lavendham.
Yeah. Oh, gosh.
So, it's really...
Worlds apart.
Worlds
in many
apart,
ways.
yeah. Similarities, but obviously worlds apart as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. And Ipswich becoming a city?
That was on the cards a few years ago. It's in the monarch declares a city. The last time we had that was, I think, the Queen's Jubilee. It was just before she died. And sadly, the MP at the time wouldn't support the bid, and so it didn't go forward. You need the support of your MP. And Colchester applied and got it. I do believe we would have become the first city of Suffolk if our MP had supported it. We have a new MP now.
We do.
Jack Abbott, who is great. And that's another reason why I became a councillor, actually, because I went to Jack's, one of his very early selection meetings as a Labour Party member, and we were able to ask questions of him as a candidate. And I said at the time, what do you think about city status? And he categorically said, absolutely, we need it. It would be good for us economically. And I was like, yeah, okay, yes, I'll back you then. And then I worked very closely with him through his campaign, and I thought, actually, you know what? If you can do it, then I'm going to do it. That's kind of another reason to get involved. So yeah, I do believe it will help us economically, investment.
Culture's the swell of culture in Ipswich. It's always been there, but it's just becoming more prolific. It's becoming really exciting. There's so much going on. I'm going to talk about the book festival in 1 second, but you're also a trustee of the New Wolsey Theatre. Yeah,
and that's been amazing. In fact, I think I'm in my last few months, actually. Yeah, I've done 2 terms, so I can't remember whether it's 6 years I've been involved. But again, that came out of I've always been, I've loved theatre. Never acted. Done a bit of odd stuff at school, but never been on the stage. And to be asked to be a trustee back in the day, this is pre-COVID, was really wonderful, actually. And it's been great. I mean, it's been a really interesting journey in the sense that we had pre-COVID time with Sarah and Peter, who were kind of thinking about maybe retiring. Then we had COVID. So to see and get the theatre through those very, very difficult few years of, would we have a theatre? Would it ever reopen? We remember having Zoom meetings where we were like, we don't know. And that was, oh, wow, that was frightening and scary. And then when it reopened and going to the first performance, everyone was crying, even the actors, because they couldn't believe they'd ever be back. And then welcoming Doug Wintoll, the new CEO, when Sarah and Peter stood down. So I've seen it through some really interesting and quite turbulent times, but it's in really, really great hands now. And the theatre is really doing wonderful things, not just on the stage, but beyond the stage. All the community outreach they're doing is frankly amazing. I'm always in utter, lost for words quite often when I see all the reports of what they're doing and where they've been and what they're delivering is great. So I've learned a lot through being involved with the theatre. I've made some good friends. Mm-hmm. Sitting opposite one now.
Thank you.
It's been really, I've learned a lot, and I hope I've been able to bring something to the table as well. And also not being in the business. I think that's always really useful to get people who are not in the business to be part of it as well.
Well, this is it, because you're adding value. It's like you were talking about, the counsellors of old and how, that doesn't bring much imagination, creativity in, because your lived experience is really important to adding value to what the New Wolsey Theatre is trying to achieve with your eyes and your perspective. That's a trustee, isn't it?
Yeah,
support.
Yeah, but also, bringing it into what, as an audience member, what is it I want, as an audience member? Forget, I can't offer anything as a performer, but I can feed back about being an audience member and what is the experience. And actually, in my own business, I think I said it's like having a bit of theatre. You are performing and you are creating something special and an experience. And if we're going to survive, if I'm going to survive on the high street, if our town centres are going to survive, it has to be about experience. And the theatres and our arts and our culture sector are going to be even more important than they've ever been, because people are not coming to the high street to buy product. All my products you can get online. There's nothing unique in here that you can't get on Etsy or any of the other platforms, even on my own website. So it has to be about experience. So we have to be more aligned. The town centres and experience has got to be more aligned to those kind of places, because that's why people come.
Yeah. Well, you can hear all the noises going on in the background because the shop is busy downstairs and a motorbike just went past. So it's all go.
Yeah, it's I like to think, as we said here, this is a success story of Ipswich in many ways, that this community is pulled together to be vibrant, and that's what we need to replicate, not just in Ipswich but on high streets around the country.
Gosh, yeah. You are now turning your hand, being partners with 3 others, is it? For the Ipswich Book Festival.
Yes.
This is just exciting.
Well, again, I don't think I've ever had a master plan in my life. I've never had a career path. I've never gone, I'm going to do that. All this stuff has happened to me quite organically, and I'm someone who kind of puts it out there and goes, right, what's going to be next? The book festival is something I've often thought about in Ipswich. We have lots of great things, like we have Brighton the Corners, we have Spill Festival, we have lots of one-off things in all the different theatres and all the marvellous things they do. There has been book festivals in the past, but they've never gained any traction. And I have a very good... So there are 4 of us. There are 4 directors. As myself, there's Andrew Marsh from Dial Lane Books, our only independent bookshop in Ipswich, and it's marvellous and brilliant. Emma Lightfoot, she runs the Orwell Lady, the river cruises, amongst many other things. She's a very talented lady. And Tony Felgate, he is Andrew's partner. He is a director of Mumfind Cleaning. So we're 4 businesses. We all bring something very different and very passionate to the table. And over the years of us all getting to know each other, we've often said, oh, we should have a book festival. And because of Andrew in the bookshop, we're all good. We all read a lot. One thing I've always done is read. Love books, love reading. Got to know Andrew really well. Emma and I are in book groups and, read and whatever. So it just kind of came about as an idea that's been bandied around for a while. And I think as well, we have all been in business a while and we know people and we're very bedded into the communities of Ipswich. And it felt right. So we've talked about this for about 6 months. We had to keep a lid on it for a while because we weren't really sure whether it would get anywhere or get any traction. So we kept a bit of a lid on it for about 6 months, actually. So we started planning last September, October, and we've pulled a few people in along the way. We're working with Watt Associates, who are brilliant local, doing marketing, all our design, incredible.
That design is stunning.
Yes, and it's based on a kaleidoscope.
Yeah.
And the fact that kaleidoscopes change, you can move them and change. And actually the tagline for the festival is turn the page, change perspective, which is what we are all trying to do in our own businesses, and especially in a town like Ipswich, we do need to change the narrative about the place. And isn't it great that books could maybe help to do that and be part of all of the great art things that are happening in it. So it adds to the cultural offer of Ipswich. So, yes, it started as an idea, sitting around a table, glass of wine or a bottle of wine, and 6 months later we launched it. It went out on social media a few weeks ago, but we had a media launch on Friday at the university. Couldn't be more perfect. The sun was shining. It looked like the Riviera.
Yeah.
It was full of people, and we launched it to the world. And we've been really overwhelmed by people's comments, actually, of, wow, that's brilliant. God, yeah, well, why haven't we had this before? And, oh, I love books. Oh, I'm in a book group. Blah, blah. We don't have any money. I mean, we're seeding this ourselves from our businesses. So the point of Friday was to go out to the public and kind of go, look, guys, we're going to need a bit of support here. So if anyone can help, we've got a package of sign up if anyone can.
So you have got that for potential sponsors?
We have, yes.
Okay.
And that will all be out on the website, hopefully maybe the end of this week.
Great.
It's if you go to ipswichbookfestival.com and you can sign up now, get our newsletter. So it's in October.
I was going to say.
Yes.
3rd to the 5th.
5th of October this year in multi-venues across the town. Mm-hmm. We're just kind of working out where the different authors. The whole point is it's not just a literary festival. It's going to be workshops. We're going to do obviously author events and panel events, but we want to work with communities going forward. Not so much this year because it's going to be quite a small festival to start with, but going forward, if we can get some grant money and support, we want to do a lot more stuff with community groups and see if we can help them. And we're also going to look beyond the book, so not just the words. It'll be illustration, how you write, so creative writing, how to start writing, how to publish. We've got a publisher on board who's going to maybe run some workshops. Meet the authors in not just listen to them talking about their books, but also how they got published, how they started writing, why they started writing. So all an illustration, because I look back at my son and he was not a massive reader, but he loved football and he loved football magazines. So actually, it's not just about the words, it's about how you engage people in other ways, an illustration, photographs, all of that, how you create a book, how you put it all together.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah. So we're going to watch this, so we go and visit the website.
Yes.
Say it again.
Ipswichbookfestival.com. And if you go onto Instagram, it is Ipswich Book Festival. Either way, you can follow us and pick up the links. Our headline, we've got 5 patrons as well, authors who are brilliant.
Yeah.
Our headliner for the festival is Larry Lamb.
Yeah.
But he's written a book. It's the first time he's written a book. And we're very excited about this because the Hay Festival have got James, Ruth and Alison, who are all in Gavin and Stacey with Larry. And we've got Larry. So we've got Mick.
Good.
we also reached out to Omid Jalili, the comedian who is now living and is based in Ipswich.
Yeah.
He lives literally just around the corner from me. And he has been a really positive advocate for Ipswich and the communities of Ipswich for a while now. And I've seen him at the Regent a couple of times last year because he did a thing with Griff Rhys-Jones and he did his own show just after Christmas. Really passionate about Ipswich. So we reached out to him because to try and be, link to our communities. And he understands them better than we do. But also he has, very excitingly, written a sitcom that is based, I think, at the university, around the University of Suffolk. So he came to the launch on Friday with his wife, who is also delightful, really keen on reading and literature and getting involved. Hopefully he will come. He's very keen to get involved. And he did, we said to him about, our chapter 1, which is year 1 of the book festival, is about firsts. So we're trying to celebrate firsts. And, he's written a script. And, so he's really keen to be involved. So we will be working with him throughout the year leading up to the book festival and hopefully at the book festival and for future. And I asked him if he would help us look at our community outreach and what we could do, because I'm not going to assume we know what needs to go out there. So he's going to be, I think, quite pivotal in that.
That's amazing. Well, we'd like him on the Suffolk Pod Show. Do you think he'd come along and have a chat with us about his involvement and everything else?
I'm sure we could hook you up with him. Yes.
Brilliant.
Yes.
That's super.
Yes. Well, the other thing I would say, we have the street markets. We got 3 this year.
Yeah, okay.
On the street. So again, talking about experiences, the community here has been pivotal in creating that vibrancy. And one of the ways we've done that, we've done it in many ways, but one of the most important ones is the street markets that have been going for 13 years. We set them up as a result of the bank crisis in 2009-10 for survival, really. And they're still going. So this year we're doing 3. We're doing 1 in June, 1 in November, and in September we're doing for Heritage Open Day. We're in a very historic part of Ipswich, and you're sitting in a very, very old building, medieval building, and we're having a vintage car show, which isn't connected in any way to the Tudors, but we are drawing on the connection to Willis. So the Willis building is 50 years old this year. So we are drawing on the 70s, and the cars that will be here will be registered from the late 60s to the early 80s. And that's 14th of September, part of Heritage Open Day in Ipswich. And it's about experience. It's about bringing people who might not have come before to the street, coming and meeting all of us and seeing all the great businesses here and all the great traders. And cars are something we've never done before. 2 years ago, we had Henry VIII and all the wives here, which was hilarious. Yeah. I had them all standing outside the shop, which was really bizarre because you never see them all together. No. And they'd never worked together either as a group, which was quite funny. So.
Well, that's brilliant. That's brilliant.
Yes.
Right. So all of those dates for the markets we can find online?
Yes, at thesaintsipswich.com.
Brilliant. Cathy, thank you so much
it's
for
been brilliant.
all of that.
It's been really
I knew
good.
you talked, but you talked brilliantly.
Oh,
yeah, that's
it's
awesome.
been great.
No, it's really interesting to find out more about you. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Good luck with
Pleasure.
the festival.
Thank you.
We will keep in touch and follow it closely.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for listening to the Suffolk Pod Show. Find us on Facebook, Twitter or Instagram, or you can visit our website, podtalk.co.uk. And here's our disclaimer.
The Suffolk Pod Show will not be held responsible for any omissions or errors in its podcast.
The Suffolk Pod Show is produced purely for entertainment purposes. Views and opinions are that of our own or that of our guests.